I never thought a regular Thursday brunch would turn into the day I found out about my husband's betrayal. But there I was, frozen in the hallway, listening to him and his parents plot to get their hands on my family's money. My name is Sydney, and until that moment, I thought my life was under control. I'm a music teacher, married to Luke, who I thought was the love of my life, and a mother to our amazing 4-year-old daughter, Kate. My parents built a good life through hard work, and I've always been proud to follow their example of being independent. She just needs the right push, Luke said in the living room, his voice calm and smooth, the way he sounds when he's making a sales pitch. If we can get her to quit teaching, she'll have to rely more on her parents' support. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart pounding. Kate was upstairs napping, and I had just checked on her when I heard them talking. "Darling, you're being too subtle," said my mother-in-law, Anna, her voice sweet but filled with malice. "That salon chain her mother owns is worth millions. Sydney needs to realize her little music teaching job is beneath her potential." Beneath her potential? I mouthed silently, my hands clenching into fists. "It's not that simple," Luke sighed. "Sydney is stubborn about her independence. She gets that from her father." "Well, her father's not getting any younger," my father-in-law, James, added. "And neither is her mother. Have you looked into their estate planning?" I felt sick to my stomach. Their voices blurred as blood rushed to my ears. For 4 years, I thought I knew Luke. But here he was, talking about me like I was some problem to solve or resource to exploit. The worst part? They spoke about my parents' money as if my mom and dad were already gone. My mom still works long hours at her salons because she loves it, and my dad spends his days tinkering with tech projects in his home office. They are both full of life, not the fragile people Luke and his parents made them out to be. I must have made a noise, because the conversation in the living room abruptly stopped. Taking a deep breath, I straightened my shoulders, put on my best teacher smile, and stepped into the room. When I walked into the room, I used the same tone I use when I catch students passing notes in class. "Hey everyone," I said, proud that my voice sounded calm. "Having a nice chat?" Luke's face shifted, first guilt, then concern, before he put on his usual charming smile. "Hey, babe. We were just talking about your career." "Oh." I picked up my coffee mug from the side table, trying to keep my hands busy. "Anything interesting?" Anna jumped in, her perfectly manicured nails and fake concern on full display. "Darling, we were just discussing how many more opportunities you could have if you weren't tied down to teaching with your family's resources, of course." "My family's resources," I interrupted, taking a slow sip of my now cold coffee, "are exactly that, my family's." The room went silent. Luke shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the familiar crease forming between his eyebrows, the one that always appeared when something wasn't going his way. "Sydney," he started, but I cut him off with a sharp look. "I think I need some air," I said, setting my mug down carefully, even though my hands were trembling. "Would you mind watching Kate for a bit? I just need to clear my head." I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. As I passed the hallway mirror, I caught a glimpse of my reflection. I looked the same as I had that morning, but everything had changed. The woman staring back at me now knew her marriage might be built on lies, and she was already figuring out what to do about it. 2 weeks later, I found myself sitting at my parents' dining table, watching my mom arrange flowers as if everything in the world was still fine. I hadn't told them what I'd overheard yet. How do you tell your parents that their son-in-law sees them as nothing more than a walking investment plan? "You're quieter than usual," Mom said, trimming a flower stem with her usual steady hands. "Is everything okay with Kate?" "Kate's perfect," I replied, managing a small smile. "She's with Luke at his parents' house." Mom's hands paused for a moment. Anna and James," she said, her tone cool. The way she said their names told me everything. I needed to hear my mom's thoughts about my in-laws. I should have trusted her instincts 4 years ago. "They're hosting a dinner tonight," I said, tracing the wood grain of the table with my finger. "Something about a new business venture." Dad looked up from his tablet, his engineer's mind already working. "What kind of ventures?" "I'm not sure yet, but they specifically asked for you and Mom to join us." "Did they now?" Mom's voice had a sharp edge, the same tone she used when dealing with difficult suppliers for her salon chain. How interesting. Before I could say more, the doorbell rang. My stomach sank when I saw Luke through the window, arriving early with his parents. Kate wasn't with them. Where's Kate? I asked as they walked in. The nanny's watching her, Luke said smoothly, kissing my cheek. We thought it'd be better to discuss business without distractions. I caught the look that passed between my parents. They had always supported my choice to keep teaching after Kate was born. Unlike Anna, who called it playing at having a career, dinner turned into a masterclass in passive-aggressive behavior. Anna complimented my mom's cooking but hinted that she must be too busy with her little salons to cook often. James kept steering the conversation toward retirement planning, while Luke wore his salesman smile, watching everyone like he was waiting for the right moment to make his pitch. So, Luke said finally, setting down his wine glass. We wanted to talk about an exciting opportunity. Here it comes, I thought. There's this incredible property development project, he continued, in a prime location. Guaranteed returns. But we need initial investors. Dad's expression stayed neutral, but I noticed his hand tighten around his fork. And you're bringing this to us because family should help family, Anna cut in with her overly sweet tone. With your resources, it would be a shame not to. Our resources, my mom said, cutting her off, are already committed to expanding the salon chain. We're opening 3 new locations next month. I saw Luke's face fall slightly before he quickly recovered. Surely some diversification would be wise, Ariane, he said. Your business is doing well, but property development could offer much better returns. Better returns than the business I built from nothing? Mom's voice was cold, sharp enough to cut through the room. The business that paid for Sydney's college without a single dollar of debt. That's not what Luke meant, Anna said quickly, her voice sugary sweet. We just think. I know exactly what you think, I interrupted, surprising even myself with how calm I sounded. You think my parents' money is your safety net. You think my mother's business is just a stepping stone to something better. You think I should quit my job and let my husband take over the finances. The room went silent. Luke stared at me, his charm fading to reveal something colder, darker underneath. Have you been eavesdropping on private conversations? He asked, his voice low. Private conversations about my family's money? I stood, the sound of my chair scraping against the floor breaking the tense quiet. Yes, I heard everything last Thursday. And I've been watching you ever since, waiting to see if you'd come clean. But instead, you brought your parents here to pitch this scheme. Sydney, Luke started, but my father cut him off. I think it's time for all of you to leave, Dad said quietly. His calm voice carried more weight than any loud argument. Luke lingered in the doorway after his parents stepped outside. We'll talk about this at home. No, we won't, I replied firmly. Because I'm staying here tonight with my daughter. You can't just. I shut the door before he could finish. After they left, I sat on the couch between my parents, feeling like a little girl again. But this time, the monster wasn't under my bed. It was the man who wore my wedding ring. I'm so sorry, I whispered. Mom squeezed my hand gently. Don't be sorry. Be smart. In that moment, I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I never expected to become a detective in my own marriage, but there I was, sitting in the dark at midnight, scrolling through Luke's laptop while he slept upstairs. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the heater and the pounding of my heart. What started as a gut feeling had led me here. His password was still Kate's birthday, a detail that should have been sweet but now felt like another calculated move. My hands trembled as I opened folder after folder, each one unraveling a story I didn't want to read. Oh, God, I whispered, staring at a bank statement. The numbers didn't lie. Luke had been bleeding money for months, failed investments, secret credit cards, hidden loans. Piece by piece, the truth came together, and I wished I hadn't started looking at all. I never knew the full extent of Luke's schemes until I saw an email thread with his parents. They were discussing ways to access my mom's business accounts. The sight of it made my stomach turn. The floor creaked behind me. Find what you're looking for? Luke's voice startled me. I spun around to see him standing in the doorway, half hidden in the shadows. He didn't look angry. Worse, he looked calculating. "How long have you been planning to steal from my mom's business?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, even though my hands were shaking. "Steal is such an ugly word," he said, stepping into the room and running a hand through his messy hair. "I'd call it redistributing family resources." "Family resources?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean the business my mom built from nothing? The one she worked 21-hour days for? The one that could save us?" He slammed his hand on the desk, making me jump. "Do you know what it's like living in the shadow of your family's success? Having everyone compare me to your dad." "So this is about your ego?" I asked sharply. "This is about survival," he snapped, leaning closer. His charm was gone, replaced by something colder. "I'm drowning here, Sydney. The property development deal fell apart. I owe people money." "How much?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "More than you want to know," he said bitterly. I stood up slowly, putting some distance between us. "And you thought the solution was to steal from my mom?" "I thought the solution was to use available resources." "Stop." I cut him off, holding up my hand. "Just stop. For once, no sales pitch. Be honest." Something in his expression cracked, his mask slipping for a moment. "Fine. You want honesty? I'm broke. Everything I built is gone. And your parents? They're sitting on a fortune while I'm drowning." "They worked for that fortune," I said firmly. "And I worked too," he yelled, his voice rising enough to make me glance at the ceiling, worried about waking Kate. "But nothing I do is ever enough. Not for them. Not for my parents. Not for you. Don't you dare make this about me," I hissed, stepping closer. "I loved you. I supported you. I never once asked you about money." "Exactly," he said with a bitter laugh. "You never had to ask about money. You've always had it as a safety net. Must be nice." I turned back to the laptop, opening my email and forwarding everything I'd found to myself. Luke watched me, his jaw tightening. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Protecting my family," I said, meeting his eyes. "You have 14 hours to tell my parents everything, or I will. And trust me, you'd rather it come from you?" "You're bluffing," he said, narrowing his eyes. "Try me." I grabbed my phone and headed for the stairs. "I'm getting Kate." He caught my arm. "It's the middle of the night. Let go of me," I said, my voice cold. "Or the first call I make won't be to my parents. It'll be to the police." His hand dropped. I packed a bag for Kate while Luke paced downstairs, making hushed, angry phone calls. I knew he was talking to his parents, probably trying to figure out how to control the situation. Let them try. 30 minutes later, I was strapping a sleepy Kate into her car seat. Luke stood in the doorway, watching us. "This isn't over," he said. "You're right," I replied, starting the car. "It's just beginning." As I drove through the quiet, dark streets toward my parents' house, Kate dozed in the back seat. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. So innocent, so unaware of how her world was about to change. My grip on the steering wheel tightened as my determination grew. Luke was right about one thing. This wasn't over. But he had no idea what I was prepared to do next. They say bad news comes in threes. I never imagined all three would hit me in a single day. The first blow came at dawn. My lawyer called to tell me Luke had already taken half the money from our savings account. It was legal since the account was in both our names, but it was a crushing blow nonetheless. I sat in my parents' guest room, staring at my phone, my hands shaking as Kate slept peacefully beside me. The second hit came at noon. Mom collapsed at one of her salons. A stroke, the doctor explained in a cold, sterile hospital hallway. She's stable, but the next 72 hours are critical. I stood there, numb, as Dad gripped my hand tightly. Everything looked harsh and unreal under the fluorescent lights, like a nightmare I couldn't escape. The third came just before midnight, a text from an unknown number. "Thought you should see this." Attached was a photo of Luke leaving a hotel with Anna, carrying what looked like documents. The timestamp showed it had been taken just hours after Kate and I left the house. I was still staring at the message when Dad returned from the coffee machine. "The vultures are already circling," he said quietly, handing me a cup. "Luke's been calling the salon managers, trying to get financial information." "How did you find out?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Amber called," he said, sitting heavily in the plastic chair next to me. "She's worked with your mom for 16 years. She knows something's wrong." I nodded, unable to speak. Through the window into Mom's room, I saw her lying there, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. The woman who taught me to be strong and independent couldn't even breathe on her own. "Dad," I started, but my voice broke. "I know," he said softly, pulling out his tablet. "Let's get to work." "I recognize this from Amber's office," Dad said, his fingers flying over his tablet screen. "Your mother and I have been expecting something like this. Not exactly this, but we knew it was a possibility." "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "We've seen the way Luke and his parents look at what we've built, like it's their backup plan." He entered a password and continued, "Your mother made some changes last month. She transferred majority control of the salons to you." The coffee cup nearly slipped from my hand. "She did what?" "She said she had a feeling," Dad said with a sad smile. "She always had good instincts about people." A commotion at the nurse's station made us both look up. Luke was there, arguing with security. Anna stood behind him, looking polished and predatory as always. "Sir, only family is allowed," the guard said firmly. "I am family," Luke snapped, his voice echoing down the hall. "That's my mother-in-law in there." I stood up without thinking, my body moving before my mind could catch up. Dad grabbed my arm. "Let security handle it." "No," I said, handing him my coffee. "I need to end this now." Luke spotted me and immediately turned on his fake concern. "Sydney, baby, I've been so worried." "Save it," I interrupted, stopping just out of his reach. I saw the hotel photos. His face flickered with surprise, then hardened into indignation. "You're having me followed?" "Apparently someone else is," I replied, glancing at Anna. She looked uncomfortable for the first time. "What documents were you reviewing with your mother at the Grand Hotel?" "That's private business," he said stiffly. "Nothing about my family's business is private to you anymore," I said, stepping closer and lowering my voice. "You have one chance to walk away with your dignity. Leave now, or I'll send everything I found on your laptop to every investor you've ever worked with." Anna grabbed his arm. "Luke, let's go." But he shook her off, his mask cracking. "You think you can threaten me? I know things about your father's tech patents." About what?" Dad's calm, steady voice cut through the tension as he stepped up beside me. "Please, Luke, enlighten us about my business. I'm very interested to hear what you think you know." The security guard stepped closer. "Sir, I'm going to need you to leave." For a moment, I thought Luke might argue, or even lash out. But then his shoulders slumped, and I saw him for what he truly was, a scared little boy, drowning in lies, pretending to be a businessman. "This isn't over," he muttered, but the threat sounded weak, hollow. "Actually, it is," I replied, turning back toward Mom's room. "My lawyer will contact you tomorrow." As security escorted them out, I heard Anna hissing at Luke, but I didn't bother listening. I had more important things to focus on, like protecting what my mom had worked so hard to build, like being the daughter she always believed I could be, and like making sure the people who tried to tear my family apart never got another chance. The salon mirrors reflected my mom's empty office chair as I sifted through the chaos Luke had left behind. Just 4 days after her stroke, and I was already finding holes in the business accounts, small ones at first, then bigger ones. It was like a trail of breadcrumbs leading to something much worse. "Miss Sydney," Amber, our head stylist, said, appearing in the doorway. "They're here again." I didn't need to ask who they were. Through the glass walls, I could see Anna and James sitting in the waiting area. They were dressed like they were heading to a board meeting, not a beauty salon. "Send them in," I said, keeping my eyes on the computer screen. I let them wait while I finished reviewing another suspicious transaction. "Sydney, darling," Anna greeted, her strong perfume reaching me before she did. "We've been trying to get in touch with you." I've been busy discovering what your son did to my mom's business, I said without looking up. Then I finally met her gaze. Would you like to explain these transfer authorizations? The ones with your signature on them? James shifted in his seat, looking uneasy. Now, Sydney, business is complicated. Theft usually is, I interrupted, turning the screen toward them. Did you think no one would notice? That my mom would just brush it off as a family favor? Your mother understood the importance of family, Anna said sharply. Unlike you, it seems. I laughed, but it sounded hollow even to me. Family? Is that what you're calling embezzlement these days? We prefer to think of it as a temporary reallocation, James said, pulling out a folder. Actually, we have a proposal that could solve everyone's problems. The only problem I have, I said, glaring at them, is sitting right in front of me. Anna leaned forward, her expensive bracelet catching the light. Your mom is in the hospital, Sydney. The business needs strong leadership. Luke has experience stealing from it, I snapped, standing up so quickly that my chair rolled back. And now I know you helped him. Be reasonable, James said, trying to sound calm. We can make this all go away. Sign over controlling interest to Luke, and we'll forget about pressing charges for the irregularities we found in your father's tech patents. My blood went cold. What irregularities? Anna smiled, her teeth gleaming like a predator's. Let's just say Luke did his homework. It would be such a shame if the patent office received an anonymous tip about your father's early development processes. The pieces clicked into place. Luke's late nights, his sudden interest in Dad's old projects. They'd been planning this for months. Get out, I said, my voice steady despite the anger boiling inside me. Think about Kate, Anna said, her voice dripping with fake concern. Think about her future. Imagine what a messy legal battle would do to her. Something inside me snapped. I picked up my mom's heavy glass paperweight, turning it over in my hands. You know what my mom told me about building her business? She said sometimes you have to break things to make them stronger. I brought the paperweight down hard on the corner of the desk, cracking the glass surface. Both Anna and James jumped. That was your first warning, I said, setting the paperweight down gently. Here's your second. I have copies of everything, every transfer, every forged signature, every so-called reallocation. One phone call, and it all goes to the FBI. You wouldn't, James stammered. Think about Luke, Anna added. I am thinking about Luke, I said coldly. I'm thinking about how good he'll look in orange. I walked to the door and held it open. You have 26 hours to return every penny, or I start making calls. And if you ever mention my daughter again, the only way you'll see her is through the glass in a prison visiting room. They scurried out like rats. Moments later, Amber appeared in the doorway with a cup of tea. Your mom would be proud, she said softly. I looked down at the cracked desk, thinking of my mom lying in her hospital bed, my dad poring over old patents, and Kate asking why she couldn't go home. No, I said, picking up my phone. Not yet, but she will be. I dialed my lawyer's number, watching Anna and James hurry to their car through the salon's windows. They thought they could use my family against me? Fine. It was time to show them exactly what kind of woman my mom had raised. It was time to make them regret ever hearing the name Sydney. The divorce papers sat untouched on Luke's desk as he paced his office like a trapped animal. I had chosen my timing carefully, after hours, when his staff had left, but before he could slip away to whatever hotel he was hiding at these days. You can't be serious, he said, picking up the papers and then dropping them like they were on fire. After everything we've built. You mean after everything you've stolen, I said, staying on my feet and keeping the desk between us. The salon accounts, my dad's patents, our savings. I was trying to save us, he shouted, slamming his hands on the desk. Your parents have been holding us back, controlling everything with their money. The only one trying to control anything is you, I said, shoving the papers closer to him. Sign them. He let out a harsh laugh, the sound making me flinch. Or what? You'll run to Daddy? Have him sue me? Go ahead. I'll drag every skeleton out of his closet, every shortcut he took building his precious tech empire. You're bluffing, I said. Am I? Luke shot back, pulling out his phone and showing me documents. I'd never seen those before, I said, my voice trembling. Your father wasn't as clean as you think, Luke said smugly. Want to know how many corners he cut? How many people he stepped on? My hands started to shake. Those are fake. The patent office won't think so, he said, his smile turning cruel. Neither will his investors. One anonymous tip, and everything comes crashing down. You destroy him just to hurt me? I destroy him to protect what's mine, Luke snapped, stepping closer. Including you. I backed away, bumping into the wall. I was never yours to own. No. He moved even closer. Then why did you marry me? Because you loved me? Or because your parents approved of my pedigree, my connections? Stop it, I said firmly. Face it, Sydney. You're just like me, playing the game, using people. I'm nothing like you, I hissed. Really? He grabbed my wrist as I tried to walk past him. Then why are you here alone? Why didn't you bring your lawyer? Because you thought you could manipulate me, just like your mother taught you. I yanked my arm free. Don't talk about my mother. Poor Ariane, he said mockingly. All those years building her empire, and now she can't even speak to defend it. How long before the board pushes you out? A month? A week? Something inside me snapped. I grabbed the nearest object, a crystal award from his desk, and hurled it at the wall. The crash was loud, and the way he jumped was deeply satisfying. You want to talk about manipulation? I shouted, my voice shaking with anger. Let's talk about how you and your parents planned this from the start. How you married me for my family's money. How you... The office door opened, and Anna walked in, perfectly composed despite the chaos. I thought I heard voices, she said smoothly, glancing at the shattered crystal. Having a disagreement? Get out. I spat. I'm afraid I can't do that, she said, holding up her phone. Not when I have such interesting security footage of you assaulting my son. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? Throwing things. Threatening him, she said, clicking her tongue like I was a misbehaving child. Not very maternal behavior. I wonder what a judge would think about Kate's safety with such an unstable mother. The room spun. They'd planned this too, the confrontation, the security footage, everything. You wouldn't dare use my daughter against me, I said, my voice cracking. Try us, Luke said, his tone soft but dangerous. Sign over your controlling interest in the salons, and we'll forget this happened. Fight us, and you'll lose everything. Your business, your father's reputation, and Kate. I looked at them, mother and son, so alike in their cold, calculated cruelty. All my careful plans, all the evidence I had of their theft, felt worthless if they could make me look unstable and dangerous. I'll give you 26 hours to decide, Anna said, like she was doing me a favor. Choose wisely. They left me there, surrounded by shattered crystal and broken dreams. My phone buzzed, a text from Dad about Mom's worsening condition, another from my lawyer warning me about Luke's countersuit. I slid down the wall, the divorce papers scattered around me like fallen leaves. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt completely lost. But one thing was clear. I couldn't let them win, not for me, but for Kate, for Mom, and for everything my family had built. I just had to figure out how. The moment I stepped into Luke's parents' house, I knew something was wrong. The place was too quiet, too still, like a trap waiting to spring. I found them in the study, Luke, Anna, and James seated behind the massive oak desk like judges at a trial. A laptop sat in front of them, silently playing the security footage from Luke's office. Where's Kate? I asked, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was racing. She's safe, Anna said smoothly. With the nanny. We thought it best to handle this professionally. Funny, I said, setting my own laptop on the desk. I was thinking the same thing. Luke's smirk faltered when I opened it, revealing a video chat window. Amber's face appeared, alongside my dad's lawyer, and most surprising of all, James's former business partner, David. Hello, James, David said, his voice crackling through the speakers. Been a while. James's face went pale. What is this? This, I said, pulling out a USB drive, is everything. The real records from the salon accounts. My dad's original patent documentation. And something very interesting from David about some creative accounting you and Luke did at your old firm. Anna shot up from her chair. You're bluffing? Like you were bluffing about that security footage? I replied, pulling out my phone. I played a recording I'd made during the confrontation at Luke's office, capturing their entire setup. Amazing what modern phones can do, isn't it? Luke lunged for my laptop, but I stepped back, snapping it shut.
Don't bother.
It's all backed up. And if anything happens to me or Kate, it goes straight to the FBI. You destroy your own families? Luke's voice cracked. Your daughter's future? No, Luke, I said calmly. I'm saving it from you. We can still work this out, Anna said quickly, holding up her hands in a pleading gesture. We're family. Family? I laughed bitterly. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't use a 4-year-old as leverage. Family doesn't. Oh, spare us the moral high ground, Luke snapped. You're just like us, using whatever advantage you can get. The difference, I said, meeting his eyes, is that I'm not doing this for money. I turned to David. Show them. David shared his screen, displaying financial records that made James gasp audibly. This is what they really took from your mom's business, David said, scrolling through the evidence. And this, he added, pulling up more documents, is what they were planning to do next. The room went silent, except for the hum of the laptop fans. I watched their faces as they realized just how completely I had outmaneuvered them. Here's what's going to happen, I said, pulling out a stack of papers. You're going to sign these. All of you. Full confession of the theft, immediate repayment of everything you took, and a legally binding agreement to stay away from my family's businesses forever. And if we refuse? Anna asked, her voice trembling slightly. Then David sends everything to the SEC, I said. I'm sure they'd love to hear about James's creative accounting methods. And as for Luke, I turned to him, locking eyes. Those investors you scammed? They're eager to have a chat with the FBI. Luke slumped in his chair, the fight draining out of him. You've been planning this all along. I learned from the best, I said, sliding the papers closer to them. You taught me how to play the long game, remembers? One by one, they signed. Even Anna, though her hand shook with barely controlled rage. David and my dad's lawyer witnessed the signatures virtually. I didn't feel triumph, just exhaustion. One more thing, I said, pulling out another set of papers. The divorce papers. Full custody of Kate. Non-negotiable. Luke stared at the papers for a long moment. Can I still see hers? Supervised visits, I said firmly, if you get help. Real help, not playing the victim. He nodded and signed without another word. As I packed up my laptop, James finally spoke. What happens now? I paused at the door. Now, you get to find out what it's like to build something honest for once. To earn what you have. I looked at each of them in turn. Consider it a gift, more than you gave my family. I left them there, surrounded by the ruins of their schemes, and went to collect my daughter. It wasn't the revenge I'd once wanted, but it was something better. Justice, with a chance for redemption. Mom would have approved. 7 months later, I stood in my mom's newly renovated office, watching the sunset paint the salon windows gold. The familiar sounds of hair dryers and quiet conversations filled the air, a symphony my mom had conducted for decades. Ms. Sidney's? Amber appeared in the doorway. Your 5:30 is here. I checked my watch, surprised. Send him in. Luke walked in looking different. He was thinner, less polished. The designer suits were gone, replaced by a simple button-down shirt and jeans. He carried a thick folder, and something else. I couldn't quite see what he was holding. Thanks for meeting me, he said, standing in the doorway like a stranger, which I supposed he now was. Kate's excited about the zoo tomorrow, I said, keeping my tone neutral. The supervised visits had been going better than I'd expected. He nodded and placed a folder on my desk. I've been researching small business loans, especially for salon expansions. There's a program that might help with the 3 new locations you're planning. I stared at him. Why? Because I owe you more than just money, he said, shifting uncomfortably. I've been working with a financial advisor, helping people avoid the mistakes I made. It's good work, honest work. He hesitated. Your parents haven't spoken to my parents since the divorce. They're in Florida now, trying to rebuild with what they have left. He paused again, then added, I'm not asking for forgiveness, Sydney. Just a chance to do something right for once. I opened the folder and skimmed through the documents. The research was thorough, professional, and exactly what the business needed. Why now? I asked. Because Kate asked me something during our last visit. He pulled out the item he'd been holding, a framed photo of Mom cutting the ribbon at her first salon opening. She wanted to know if her grandmother was a superhero because of how you talk about her. My throat tightened. What did you tell her? I told her the truth, he said. That her grandmother built something amazing, and that her mother is even stronger for protecting it. He set the photo on my desk. I found this in my parents' storage. I thought it belonged here. I picked up the photo, the memory of that day flooding back. I'd been 12, watching Mom beam with pride as she opened her first salon, a dream she built from nothing, just like I was doing now. The loan program, I said finally. Is it legitimate? Completely. I'll send all the details to your lawyer first. No strings. No involvement for me unless you want it. I studied him carefully. This version of Luke was different, humbled, and somehow more real than the polished man I'd married. I'll think about it, I said. He turned to leave, then stopped. You know what the hardest part was? He asked. Realizing I already had everything I needed, a family, a home, love. I just couldn't see it because of my own look. And now, he paused, smiling sadly. Now I see clearly. Too late, but clearly. After he left, I sat at Mom's old desk, my desk now, and looked at the photo. The setting sun caught the glass, reflecting my face over hers. 2 different women. 2 different battles. The same determination. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Dad. Mom squeezed my hand today. Doctors say it's a good sign. I smiled, touching the frame gently. Maybe Luke wasn't the only one getting a second chance. Amber knocked softly on the door. The staff meeting's ready. We're discussing the expansion plans. Be right there, I said, standing up. I took one last look at the photo, then walked out to meet my team, ready for the next chapter. I stood tall, straightening my jacket. Actually, I have some new information to share, I said, holding up the folder. It's from Luke's proposal. Maybe it could work. But this time, we'll do it our way. The right way. As I walked into the conference room, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the salon mirrors. I wasn't just my mom's daughter anymore. I was my own person. Someone who could protect what mattered, while still making space for growth, for change, and even for redemption, even for those who might not deserve it. Because that's what real strength is. It's not just about knowing how to fight. It's about knowing when to rebuild. To create something new from the ashes of what was lost. And this was just the beginning.